thank you all for coming. My name is Sean Kashigi, and I'm with the MIT Federal Credit Union. And this is Home Buying 101. We've got a great number of people with a lot of knowledge about home buying, so you're going to be able to pick up some great things here tonight. And of course, if you're not a member of the credit union, come by and see us. If you are, stop by and see us anyway. We've got tons of great products and services and information, and this is a lot of it that you're going to get here tonight. So I'm going to turn this over to Phil Vita with the Vita Realty Group at RE/MAX Leading Edge, and enjoy.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day. I know it's not always easy. It's a little hectic for us this afternoon as well, as we were dealing with a few properties that were needing our immediate attention, but it's very important that we get to join you guys today. First, I'd like to thank the credit union for having us. So the MIT Federal Credit Union, I believe this is our 4th year, so I'm proud to tell you that I've helped many people sitting exactly where you are to find the proper home for themselves and their family. We actually had a closing yesterday morning for a young couple that I had helped find a property for in South Boston, and they were relocating to Florida, so they had given us a call to ask us to sell the property for them. As they just announced to you, my name is Philip Vita. I'm with the Vita Realty Group at RE/MAX Leading Edge. Now, RE/MAX Leading Edge has 12 offices in all of the surrounding communities that you guys may be looking. We did mention the communities where we have direct offices in behind me here. But our agents service all of the communities that surround those exact locations. So if you don't see a town or a city in which you are looking, don't be concerned. We can certainly point you in the right direction and get you a local neighborhood expert, as we'd like to say. It's very important that you have somebody that knows the marketplace in which you are shopping. Today you made a great decision to be here, not only because you're fortunate enough to hear me, but more importantly because you're able to get some valuable information. You have this tremendous, tremendous tool at your disposal, and we'll talk more about it later today, but the MIT Credit Union, beyond programs, beyond all of the normal things that we look for in a lender, an investor, and a teammate, you have a personal service. You know, the gentleman that you'll hear from tonight, Colin, the entire staff at the credit union, they're a wealth of knowledge in what they do, and they're also more of a partner in life. A credit union really is somebody a little bit more involved with you on a personal level than maybe an institution like a Bank of America. Let me off subject really quickly, get a show of hands. Is there anyone here that has a property to sell that is kind of here because they want to talk about, I have a home to sell and then I need to buy? Is anybody in that position? Okay, excellent. So you and I may want to talk in more depth after this, but it's important because this seminar this year is about home buying. It is not just about first-time home buying. I assume a lot of you in the room are here because you haven't bought a property yet, whether it's a condominium. When I say home, please understand I mean a condominium, a townhouse, single-family, multifamily. So for the most part, many of you are probably first-time home buyers, but if you're not, that's okay, because we're going to have some valuable stuff to go over. How much is it costing you not to buy? I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, but this came from Forbes.com, and my assistant Amanda, who's here with me tonight, we have copies of that ad, so if you'd like to read it, we're happy to provide it for you. It gives you a sense of the cost of ownership versus rental over the next 30 years. Steve Murray, guru at Real Trends, reports that we'll see a slow, steady growth in the next 10 years, similar to what we saw in the 90s. Well, I love this slide because it's well true, and we have been seeing steady growth. It's been more like vertical growth. You know, things are moving fast. Many of you probably follow the marketplace. Prices have come back, and they've come back stronger than ever. So it's probably even more responsive than we originally thought. Housing market facts. Over the last 30 years, home values have risen more than 6% annually. The average home value doubles every 10 years. So people at these seminars, when we are asked to speak, oftentimes they'll say to me, well, geez, Phil, I'm concerned about taking this money that I've saved from my savings account and putting it into this purchase. And I say, well, you know, the interesting thing about a home purchase is it's different than a car, right? We buy a car, and the second we drive off the lot, that that car is depreciated in value. In our general area, what you're doing is you're moving your money, you're moving your assets. So you're taking cash in the savings account, let's say, or an investment, and you're moving it into equity in your home. So it's very important that you realize that. So it's not like a car purchase where you're going to have that sort of depreciation. You're just moving that piece. Home values are on the rise. So this is important to know, and this is the main reason why we changed the seminar this year. Unlike years past, a lot of my job as a buyer's agent would be to talk to you about what's the value of the home that you're looking at. We'll do comps in the field to tell you, hey, you know, the home down the street sold for this. You're missing this amenity. You have this amenity. This is the square footage, that sort of thing. We'd help you determine what the value of the property that you're considering is. With pricing the way it is now, you don't have that luxury. We're seeing almost consistently multiple bid situations. Is anyone in the room here now has been involved recently with putting in an offer on a home? No? Okay, good. So we really have new ones. All right, so the good news here is that maybe you'll learn the right way tonight and going forward, because a lot of people are getting a lot of bad advice on how to buy a home. So the practices of the past, when putting in offers and taking a certain piece off of that and hoping to have room to negotiate, you can throw it all out the window. It's a very different marketplace out there. You know, we're seeing 5, 10, 15 offers on properties. And it's important to know that the property that you're probably interested in, there's a reason for that. So you have a very large audience that feels the exact same way about that property. In this particular slide, this is just one of a couple. Amanda, you could even keep going. This will just give you a quick snapshot of some of the communities around us. For example, let's use Back Bay. $800,000 home value in 2005, okay? That was considered by many to be about the height of the market. 2009, down to $636,000. Now, not devastating home values, not devastating drops like we saw across the country in places like Las Vegas, and Arizona, or all these Florida, all these communities that were devastated, but still a fairly significant decrease. And then in 2014, we're at an all-time high at $840,000. Cambridge is another perfect example. Cambridge is another community where we're at all-time highs in home values. So people say to me, should I wait? Well, I think the values are going to continue to go up. And more importantly, we know that interest rates are going up. And I won't spend too much time on that because I know Colin will cover that for us. But you're going to be better informed by being with us today. But most of all, you need to know some things before we take the next step. You know, there are certain things I don't want you to do. And again, Colin will discuss it more. But there are things that are very important to be careful of when we're considering buying a home. Many people make a lot of mistakes, even after we're at that time when we've accepted an offer to purchase or we've been through a P&S. They're so excited about the house that they go out and buy the new washer and dryer, and they go to Lowe's and they get the financing. Or I recently had a gentleman, he was a great guy, he was a plumber, and the institution had done all the credit checks on him, they've done everything, and right when they're about to pull that final check, they say, I get the phone call, and they say, Phil, he bought a van. What the heck is he doing? $652 a month payment. That's changing all the ratios. So again, I'm not going to bog you down with ratios, and it's really not my forte, but it was very difficult. It caused us to need an extension on the closing. We were, I'm happy to say, able to overcome that, but there are certain things that you don't want to do that many people don't think about. It's important to talk to your loan officer during this process. Don't buy a car. Don't put any large purchases on your credit card. Changing jobs is really important. People think, hey, I'm going to fool them. Like, I know that my job's on the rocks, but I'm going to get all my paperwork done now. I'm going to do my credit app. I'm going to do everything so that way I can purchase that home. Well, guess what? There's always a check right before close to make sure that you are still gainfully employed and that things are still as they were when you filled out your original application. So think of it as being on the same team. You should be working with your real estate agent. You should be working with the credit union and working together so that you're not making these mistakes and we can avoid some of the pitfalls. You'll need a satisfactory pre-approval from a reliable lender. And what I mean by that is, as someone who lists a great deal of property in our area, especially in these multiple bid situations, part of what I do as a listing agent is to evaluate the offers that come in. Now, it's very easy to evaluate the financial portion. it's not as easy to evaluate their financing. And a big part of that is to see who are they pre-approved through. Now, is it a, kind of a quick one-stop shop financier over the internet? Is it a Bank of America? Many people think, well, geez, Bank of America, that's got to be fantastic. It's a huge institution. Well, the problem is, from my side of things, I'm representing the seller. I want a smooth transaction. For the most money, no problems. Well, Bank of America, and I hope there's nobody here that's working there right now, is trouble. Okay, so if you know anything about anything in the industry, as a listing agent, that's the kind of organization that we run from. Now, they might be great where you have your savings account, your checking account, but there are always problems in the process. And it's usually because there's no personal service. You're one of, 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 people that they're trying to service. So what we find is that the closings don't happen on time, the financing commitments don't happen on time, and those sort of problems lead to people taking other offers. You can choose any lender you want, but you have a team around you and in front of you with the MIT Federal Credit Union. So many of you here, and hopefully all of you here, are here because you've had some positive experience with the credit union in the past. If that's not the case, I urge you to get out there and do so. They'll have programs to offer you that other places won't. I have yet to date, since in the 4 years that we've been doing this with the credit union, I have not had a deal fall apart yet. And I don't plan on any of you being the first. But it's really important to know that because these things fall apart all the time. You guys, many of you follow the market probably as closely as I do. You'll see the houses under agreement, and all of a sudden you'll see BOM back on market. Well, what happened? Could be a bad home inspection, which we'll get into today, but most of the time, it's financing issues. So you can avoid that by using this tool that you have at your disposal. I call a stray lender. Very simple, the definition, not on our reliable list. And as I mentioned to you, many of these lenders make you promises. They all sound great. They lure you in with low interest rates. There are a lot of, sort of bait and switch. This rate will be low, but then you'll get crushed with closing costs. So when you're doing this process, you guys are the kind of people that do your homework anyway. So don't skip that step here because it's very important that you use a reliable lender. On that note, I'd like you to join me in welcoming Colin Barden. Colin is here today on our left-hand side to discuss with you quickly a little bit about rates and about the credit union. Thanks, Colin.
Thanks, Phil. As Phil mentioned, my name is Colin Barden. I'm a loan officer at Members Mortgage Company, and we are the credit union's mortgage partner. So basically what we do is we handle everything with you from the pre-approval stage up until the closing. And our primary objective is to give you the tools and the information that you need on the loan side of it so that you can feel confident going out there with Phil or whomever you're working with and knowing that you've got the financial backing behind you so that when you see something that you like, you can pull the trigger and hopefully move forward on it. And I'm sure, as Phil was alluding to earlier about as an agent himself, and if he's working with you, he would want to see that you've been pre-approved. So we would urge you that you would come to us first to go through that pre-approval process. And I think especially in this marketplace today, and Phil can touch on this a little bit, doing that first is really going to be a benefit to you. I don't know a lot of situations right now where listing agents would be accepting offers that did not have a pre-approval behind it. And it also gets a lot of your questions answered as well. So, that's one of the nice things about our company and working with the credit union is that the loan officer that you're working with, that's going to be your loan officer through the process. So we don't pass you off to another processor or an underwriter or something like that. So, there is that level of personal service. But I think the main point would be to come to us first, even if you might think you're 3-4 months away from maybe being ready to buy a house. And, we can go through what kind of a vetting process with you where we will, we'll run your credit, we'll analyze your income, we'll analyze the assets, we'll let you know exactly what you can do from a borrowing standpoint. And that way, when you get with Phil and you get out there into the marketplace, you're prepared and ready to go. And, the only thing really left to do at that point would be analyzing the collateral. And obviously, that's not something we'd be able to do until you found a property. So, you'd really be able to get a lot of that stuff out of the way. And between ourselves and the credit union, we've got a number of different mortgage products and options that we would have available to you. And, myself or one of the other loan officers, would always be available to answer questions for you. So we can get into certainly more specifics on the mortgage side of things, maybe a little bit later during some of the Q&A or even after. I am joined today by a couple of the other members of our team. Matt Pisani is up here in the front row. He's a loan officer at Members. And Dave Capone is our sales manager. He's up in the back there. So feel free to ask us any questions tonight. I know at a certain point we will turn it over to a Q&A portion. So other than that, I don't want to get into too many specifics on the mortgage side yet because everyone's going to have different questions. I think it's, almost more beneficial to get that in a one-on-one or in a Q&A setting. So thank you.
Thank you, Colin. I appreciate it.
Sure.
I want to mention to you some things. I titled this, Why You Will Love the MIT Federal Credit Union. And this is some things that I've learned in working with these guys. They have a super easy online application process. So you can begin this process right online. We're all online every day for tremendous parts of our day. So I think it's a great tool. The fact that you can get pre-approvals in 48 hours, I put some same day. I've had great luck with that. I don't want to overpromise and have them under-deliver for you, but I have no doubt that if you guys find the property that you're looking for and you have the materials that these guys need, you have the ammunition, if you will, that they'll be able to pull that off for us because they've been very responsive. They offer quick closings. For us to do a 30-day closing, I think is very realistic, right? I've had no problems with them. Condos can be a little bit more difficult. When we mentioned they may ask some condo questionnaires. The process is not a 2-second deal. Those days are over with. We've already overborrowed, all of us. We've already, overlent. Now it's time to be serious. So it's a very serious process, which they take very seriously, but they do streamline it and make it as easy as possible. Most importantly, in my opinion, you've got personal service. And in my industry, I'm doing business, and I'm the guy on the front lines making offers for buyers, and as the listing agent receiving them, the most important thing is that personal service because I can have a conversation. I can pick up the phone, call and talk to one of these guys and say, hey, your client came in and has put an offer on this property that I have for sale. I need to know how solid they are. Now, they're not going to tell me, oh, yeah, they've got a credit score of 780 and, they have, $500,000 in the bank. We're not going to have that conversation, but they're going to give me the sort of answers that I need. Phil, don't worry about it. They're great. They've got a great education. They've got a great, the MIT Federal Credit Union behind them. We feel great. So I want to thank you, Colin, for that. Let's talk about using a buyer's agent. Is anyone here using a buyer's agent as we speak? Okay, you can head out whenever you want. No, I'm just teasing. So this will be important. It'll be interesting to see what your experience was like. So we always say that this is one of the biggest investments most of us, if not all of us, will make in their life. Obviously, I equate this to going to court. If you were in trouble and you're in trouble with the law, you want someone that you know can be there for you, sort of go to war, to go to battle, to negotiate for you. You need that. If you have someone, they say, geez, it's my Aunt Sheila's friend, Debbie, and she's so sweet, and she doesn't do much. I kind of feel bad. Well, you've got the wrong person. Do you really want them to be the one when there's 12 offers on the table to be negotiating for you? Certainly not. I can find a house myself. I always say, of course you can. That certainly won't be our value. Use a buyer's agent because you value the knowledge we'll bring to the transaction. Now, that's changed over the years. So in years past, again, that would be more of us helping you to determine and analyze the market data. Now, that's not nearly as important. A more important factor might be some tricks up our sleeve, escalation clauses to help you be the successful bidder. The order in which the offer is written. Are we going to do a home inspection, or can we do the home inspection after P&S to strengthen our offer, right? Instead of doing the inspection ahead of time and giving a potential difficult situation for a seller, you may love that home. You want it no matter what, but you still need the comfort of having that home inspection. I don't blame you, but let's do it after P&S. So we send a message to the seller that, hey, we want the house, we're moving forward. We'll do our due diligence after the purchase and sale so that they don't have to worry about the deal going forward. And I love this. So are there any real estate agents in the room? No. So last year there was one that surprised me, and so that's why I asked you this year. This was very interesting because she was mad. But, you know, in this business, the new thing to do, the trend, if you will, the new exciting thing is to have these agents ask their buyers to sign buyer's agreements, okay? And in essence, what that contract will say is that you are offering to pay Philip Vita, your buyer's agent, a 2 or 2.5% commission, usually 2.5% commission. And then as your buyer's agent, we go around, we find property. Matt has a house for sale, and he is offering a commission, a co-broke of 2%. Well, you fall in love with the house. So now it's that uncomfortable situation. Matt's firm is offering a 2% co-broke to the buyer's agent. You've signed a contract to pay 2.5%. So what does my firm do? They come looking to you to make up the difference. To me, it's disgusting. I can't stand it. And so you'll have the argument would be, but Phil, we put in such time with these buyers. We take them everywhere. I do market analysis after market analysis. Well, that's your job. That's what you get paid for. And if you feel like you worry about the fact that they may stray, well, then you're not doing them the job that you should. You know, I'm proud to sit here in front of you and tell you I'm not going to be 100% right all the time, not even close. Amanda will tell you, we work together every day. But I'm going to give you 100% all the time. And I believe by doing that and showing you the attention to detail, the innovative ideas, that sort of thing, you're going to want to stay. I don't need to have you be contractually obligated to work with myself or one of my staff. It's just not the way I work. So, my opinion, stay away from them. Or in that situation, run. I just want to let you know a little bit about us. So, without going on too long, I myself, as it says there, is one of the top 3% of RE/MAX agents worldwide. It's something I'm really proud of because there are so many of us. So we're in over 85 different countries. There are, I think, over 90,000 real estate agents in the RE/MAX network. So my production obviously speaks for itself. Again, does this make me the best in the business? Absolutely not, but I have had great success. I'm a member of the Hall of Fame with RE/MAX International. That's a Lifetime Achievement Award. I was able to achieve that in just about 5 years' time. Again, something I'm proud of, more so than anything because I want you to realize that's sort of the level of dedication that I bring to what I do. I don't do this part-time. You know, for me to be here tonight, you don't even know what it does to my heart because I know there's so many other things that I have to be doing from a real estate perspective. But I know I want to be here. I know we have a great staff. Amanda is with me full-time. She's fantastic. She does all the things that I don't have the time to do, the Facebooking, the Twittering, the marketing, all of that stuff. And then the rest of our staff is also here. Like I say, we represent people in all different surrounding communities. So in terms of RE/MAX, you're getting the #1 real estate company in the world. And RE/MAX Leading Edge, we have offices in 12 communities. I believe we're currently ranked between 4th and 5th in all of the multiple listing service. So you've got a great resource at your disposal. Buying a property can be extremely frustrating. It can also be very joyful. I can't tell you with the right guidance how smooth a transaction can go, but I'd be lying to you if I told you there weren't going to be problems. It doesn't matter how well we prepare. There may be, like for example, I'll give you an example. I have a property we're supposed to close in 3 weeks, and the attorney came back to us and said the title is no good. So now we've got title issues to clear up. They have to go through probate. The home was left to a young lady and her 5 siblings. She was then assigned the property because she was the oldest sister. Well, unfortunately, she's passed away. They didn't file the paperwork properly. Now we've got an issue. What was supposed to close in a couple of weeks will take 6 months. Can we avoid all those things? We can't. But you can rest assured that we'll try to navigate through those as best that we can. I put here that you'll have a home inspection. It might find some things that'll give you heart palpitations, mold, termites, hazardous waste. That stuff comes up, maybe not the hazardous waste, but that stuff comes up a good deal. And it's important you know about those things. I want you to buy smart. Buying smart, I always say, is that it's like buying that house that I take a husband and wife in. I always have a quick conversation ahead of time, and I'll say, okay, the seller, they're the Red Sox, we're the Yankees, or vice versa, I should say, right? If you love it, don't tell them, please. Or they'll go to the open house and, whoa, I love it. I say, oh, please, no. But what that usually occurs when we walk into a home and it's decorated beautifully, the paint's perfect, and it's restoration hardware, and it's Pottery Barn, and everybody loves it. Well, guess what? You're going to pay a premium for that. I want you to develop good real estate vision. Remember, the house comes empty. So all of that beautiful furniture that you've fallen head over heels for, it won't be there when we go to do the final walkthrough. I'm not telling you not to buy a sexy house. I'm just telling you that sometimes when you walk into a home that has old carpeting and the wallpaper's peeling off the walls, those might be good things. I see that, and I see instant equity, right? You come in here and you do some of that work, and you're gaining value in a property already. Love this slide. Cameron Diaz, so we've got makeup, no makeup. This is an example of a landscaping, same exact house. This was before and after a little professional landscaping. Okay, as some of the people know here today, I'm a car fanatic. This is one I certainly love. That's the difference between a car that hasn't seen a professional detail and one that has. These are the same vehicles. The staircase, the banister, the hardwood flooring, we've got old pile carpet, we've got that old iron railing, but it's a chance for equity. Same kitchen, two different shots. Same bathroom. I think you guys get what I'm getting at here. It's not unusual for anyone to place a higher value on the cost of doing work. When you get down into it, a lot of the modifications that you just saw or that you would consider doing, they're not that expensive. I can't tell you how inexpensive it is to redo hardwood flooring. Rip up that old carpet, refinish those floors. We're talking very inexpensive. Gain yourself equity that way. Buy the house that nobody wants. If it's because it's the fact that it's dated. I'm not telling you to buy a house against the power lines and they hum all night, and I've sold those houses, but I'm telling you to try to look beyond. Let's get beyond. Okay, let's talk about protection versus risk, okay? Because this is probably the most important thing that we may touch on tonight. And I need you to understand that when you are in this competitive marketplace and you're going against 6 other bidders, okay, it's very important that we craft your offer, and I mean craft your offer. And we can't have things in there like a home sale contingency. You can't say, I need to sell my house to buy another. In most of the marketplaces surrounding us. Doesn't fly. We can make your offer more appealing by doing certain things. As I said, let's do our home inspection after purchase and sale. Let's go to the credit union, lay all your cards on the table, let them get you a commitment letter ahead of time. Then the only thing left to do is to get a satisfactory appraisal, right? We need to just ensure the collateral's there. So that's a powerful offer when you've waived all these contingencies. You're going to do a home inspection after P&S, and you're going to tell them that the only contingency there is a satisfactory appraisal. That's powerful. In our experience, every buyer always pays more than they should, and no seller gets enough. It's human nature, right? I put a home on the market, and I'll put that house on for $999. And then we end up getting $1,050,000. And the first thing my seller says to me, they don't say to me, God, Phil, that was great. They say, well, you underpriced it. It's just human nature. And the same thing with the buyer. Well, don't you think, I know we could have got it for $1,500 less. Human nature. These strategies for winning a bidding war are some of the things I discussed with you. Getting all of your financing up front, a delayed home inspection. I always say, if you're the one, if you like this house, so don't most others. So don't be surprised that there's a bidding war, especially now that they're happening every day around us. The buyer who pays the most usually wins, right? This isn't breaking news to any of you. I always get the question, I've got a listing, and every agent now is calling, okay, there's 10 offers, and each agent's calling, and they're all going to plead their case for their client. Well, they love the neighborhood, and they can see their little Ricky growing up there, and, you know, we get the letters, we get the whole thing. And they'll say to me, what's most important to the seller? Money. That's the most important thing, okay? But when you're comparing two offers, one's for $400,000 on a $350 asking price, and the other one is for $395, and there are no contingencies, there could be a strong case for taking that $395. So we want good, clean offers. But most importantly, money usually talks. I mentioned in that slide to use an odd number. Try to do something that's going to separate yourself. So when you have 10 offers in a situation and the house is on for $379, you know, that high bidder might say, I'm going to get cute and come in at $400. So go in at $401. You know, if you're willing to pay that money, do it. Separate yourself. It might give you the chance to get a best and final opportunity by doing something like that. They may be looking at, you know, 5 offers that came in at $400, and then they've got 3. One came in at $401, $405, and $410. Now that might just give you the chance, being up over the $400, to give you that second round. Tight dates, okay? We talked about considering setting up a home inspection. How about doing it before your offer is accepted? Now, it's not always easy because things are moving so quickly. Oftentimes, you're going to see that list agents are saying all offers to be reviewed on Monday, the 30th of the month. In a case where that's not the case, set up an appointment, have your broker call the other agent and say, hey, listen, we love the house very much. We want to give you a nice, clean offer. We're going to take a shot here. We'd like to do the home inspection up front. As long as you're telling the seller and the list agent what you're doing and you're above board, it's a great move. Maybe it costs you a few bucks, but you know what? The cost of that is far less than getting into a property that isn't the right fit, and it's better than have the opportunity to buy that home that you might not have had otherwise if you had that as a contingency. Eliminating your financing clause. We talked about that. So, you know, you're going to need it. Most of us here aren't completely independently wealthy and are going to buy a house for cash for $1 million or $500,000 or $700,000. I have a lot of clients that do that. But most of us here in a home buying seminar are not going to be in that position. So if you go to the credit union, you need to talk to them, and they know how strong that you are. We have the ability to waive the financing contingency. So you're acting as though you're paying cash, okay? Because that means that regardless, our lender is not going to come back to us and say, we don't have the ability to fund you. It gives a great feeling to a seller. Strengthens your offer tenfold. And again, it doesn't really mean that you need to have that cash, but you do need to have an honest, open conversation with Colin and Matt and the credit union and discuss if you have the ability to do that. It's not for everybody. Eliminate your home inspection clause. Now, I happen to have a nice gentleman, Glenn, here tonight that's going to talk to you about home inspection. So I'm not going to sit here and bash the fact that I want you to eliminate the home inspection. And I think for most of you, it's a necessary part of what you need to do. But what I do want you to do is I want you to drop it as a contingency. If you go through the home and you feel good about the home and you're willing to make the corrections necessary after purchase, don't not get the knowledge, just don't put it as a contingency. In other words, instead of saying to the seller, we're going to have a home inspection, if there's more than $1,000 worth of issue, we're going to ask to renegotiate. You're taking that right out of your offer, so you're strengthening it. But you tell them, we are going to do a home inspection for informational purposes. It's great. Protect yourself and give them comfort in knowing that you're not going to use that as a bargaining tool. Every home, even new construction. So last week we closed on a house. We went on the market for $1.9 million, brand new construction. I closed it at $1.95 million. I was the listing agent, and in this case also the buyer's agent. I worked as a dual agent because they did not have representation. That's a whole nother conversation that I'm happy to talk to you guys about later. But in that case, there was no other agent involved, and we did an inspection. Now, we did an inspection to create a punch list. It was new construction. And believe it or not, in a $2 million new construction home, I must have had a list about this long. It wasn't shoddy construction. It's just certain things that these guys are trained to look for and know what they're talking about. So we used it as a chance to create a punch list. A home inspection is not performed to find a way to renegotiate the sales price. Used to be. I've got news for you. Used to be a great tool. 4 years ago, I might have done it with you. I'd say, oh, let's just grab that thing, wrap it up, then we'll tear them apart at home inspection. Well, guess what? Those days are over. They're over. They're behind us. So you need to know that a seller is not required to do any of the work. You know, Glenn will go and do a home inspection, and he'll point out that that bottom step is in code. Now, maybe Glenn wants you to rip out all those stairs because the last step's 2 inches too tall. And maybe that's probably the good thing to do, right? Do that as a safety precaution. But that doesn't mean that the seller needs to rip out that brand new set of stairs just because Glenn told you that it's 2 inches too tall. So just remember that. Go into it with open eyes, open mind, and understand. Don't get me wrong. We've got a structural issue in the basement. I'm not telling you that maybe there isn't room for negotiation, or if it's something that's not obvious. Don't come into my listing, let's say, and the house has all old windows, and you write a great offer and you're accepted, you come back and say, geez, I didn't know it needed new windows. Well, those were the same windows that you saw the day you came in. And then when you brought your mother and father back, same windows, we didn't change them. So just remember that. On that note, I'd like to invite Glenn Gruda from Jackson Home Inspection to talk to you a little bit about home inspections. Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you, Phil. Okay, I'll try to get through my presentation. Should only take about 2 or 3 hours, so we'll be fine. Get out of here tonight. No, I'm only kidding. Basically, I gave you a handout in front of everyone. They're questions, obvious questions, common questions that come up regarding home inspections. There's actually thousands of questions, and later on, if you want to ask me anything regarding anything to do with home construction and inspections, but feel free. So I'm just going to go through the list one at a time and give you my opinion regarding home inspections. And I won't necessarily tell you when you should do the home inspection, although from my perspective, you shouldn't buy the house and then get the home inspection. Because if you find out that the heating system's not working, and unless you're a contractor that does heating systems, you're going to be sad and you're not going to be too happy. But that's a different issue. We'll get into some of that later on. Okay, one thing I will tell you right off the bat, that no house is perfect. Are we being recorded? The only thing perfect in this world is my wife. You can YouTube that if you want. Don't fall in love with the house until after the inspection. You'll be surprised at what we do find. And we find a lot of things, and every house has issues. The worst house I've ever inspected was one under construction. It wasn't even new. It was $3.2 million in Wellesley, and I failed everything for the 6 times I went out. So getting a home inspection, I feel, is very important for your investment. Every house has a number of things automatically. When you go to look at a house, you're going to find, well, I'll find at least one carpenter ant, at least one mouse, at least one mold spore, and at least one molecule of water in your basement, okay? Every house gets those things. So don't go into a house thinking it's going to be perfect, sealed off from the environment, because whatever's on the outside of that house, as soon as you open the door, it all came in with you. So keep those things in perspective. Who should be present at my home inspection and who should not? Sounds kind of obvious, but whoever's buying the house should be at the inspection. It's for your information. I know that sometimes kids are involved. You have to bring the kids with you. If there's 2 of you, one of you are going to be following the kid. Kids do not have a very good attention span. Very often, family, parents haven't seen the house, they want to see the house, that's fine. I've done inspections with 20 people. It can be really distracting to you. I want your undivided attention, you need my undivided attention. Do not bring Uncle Ed, the family contractor. Uncle Ed's going to want to show you that he knows more than I do. So he's going to run around the house and look at all the things that are wrong and show you that, gee, look what I found, look what I found. Home inspections are completely different than contracting. We look at things in a series, in a sequence. We have a system to how we look at things. And we end up looking at all the components 4 and 5 times. I started building houses with my dad about 50 years ago. It took me 5 years of being a home inspector to know what I was doing as a home inspector. I have failed, and we don't do code inspections, we're not allowed to, except if it's a new home, but I have actually told someone at a new house inspection that the electrical failed, even though there was a certificate of occupancy the day before. So you would think that home inspections on a new house wouldn't be necessary, you'd be surprised. So ideally, it's just you and me. Okay. What major components, I should read off my sheet here. What major components do home inspectors look at and inspect? Major components, well, that's somewhat ambiguous. I think there are 6 major areas, components, systems that are really important. Items that really have to be functioning properly for you to live in a house. Your roofing system, your structural system, your heating system, electrical system, and plumbing systems. And then any safety issues. Remember, if that 2-inch step someone trips on and they sue you, you're going to want to wish you had fixed it. We actually look at everything we possibly can. Major items, the ones I just said, but even minor items. I open up all cabinet doors. We check the tubs and the toilets, and I check the stoves and the dishwashers and windows and doors. We go into the attic. We look to see the insulation. We look at everything we can possibly get to. But the one thing you have to remember, it's a visual inspection. We are not allowed to do like they do on TV and rip somebody's wall down to show you all the termites. We cannot do destructive probing. Okay, so we have to really be somewhat of a sleuth in looking at areas that may indicate an issue. For instance, if I'm looking at a ceiling and I see a water stain, well, I can't start looking at, chopping the ceiling up to see where it's coming from. I have to figure out where that water stain may or may not have come from. And that's how we look at things. The other thing inspectors do is we look at things as how they work together, okay? A really fast example of that, you could have a brand new water heater put in the basement, signed off by the plumbing inspector. Right next to it, you could have a brand new furnace installed, signed off by the HVAC inspector or the mechanical inspector, and I come in and say, you got a carbon monoxide issue, okay? Because the furnace, which is an air system, which has a missing filter cover, now is creating negative air pressure next to that water heater, and it's backdrafting the water heater. That's what I look at. I have to make sure you're able to live in a house safely. So, we look at things much more than you might expect, just not if something's working or not. Okay. Will the home inspector talk in layperson's terms, and can I ask questions? The whole purpose of the inspection, in my mind, is for you to learn about the house. Yes, I want you to ask questions. In regard to questions, there are no stupid questions. You can ask me anything you want about the house. You can ask me something about the house you buy 5 years from now. I can answer questions. I won't remember the house unless it was falling down when you bought it, but other than that, I don't remember them. Questions can be answered all the time. I want you to follow me around, and as far as terminology, I can speak in basic terms. We can go out into the basement and say, well, that's a heating system. Or I can tell you it's a furnace. I can tell you it's a boiler. I can tell you it's a hydro air system. If you really want to get technical, I can tell you it's a binary geothermal system that's high velocity. I'm an engineer. I can talk to you any way you feel comfortable. A lot of people like that technical talk. That's fine. That red stuff on the wrought iron railing going up your front steps, is it rust, is it corrosion, or is it oxidation? You didn't know we were going to do chemistry today. So, in any event, if you don't understand something during inspection, raise your hand, stop. What do you mean by that? And even after the inspection, because I want you to know what's going on. I'm not going to live in the house you guys are, so you need to be comfortable. Okay, should the age or style of a home be of concern when I look at homes? In this state, we have houses hundreds of years old. We have brand new houses. I think any house built after 1950 is new. The construction techniques vary from decade to decade and from era to era. So that's one of the biggest issues you'll find in a home inspection. I can actually teach you about what the expectations are for a house, what type of foundation goes with what kind of framing, what kind of wiring, what kind of plumbing. There's a large variety and variables with all that stuff. Basically, you might want a brand new house you want nobody lived in. You might want an old farmhouse that's got character. Brokers call that those floors that go like this, character. Whatever's comfortable for you, because you're going to live there. So the house has to work for you and your family. Just remember, I'm not going to be living there, so don't even ask me if I would buy it, because I'm not going to tell you. Okay, what can the inspector take apart and what can an inspector not disassemble? Some strange rules and regulations regarding that. We already discussed about the fact I can't do what's called destructive probing. Although in an unfinished basement, the framing, I actually bring a 2-foot screwdriver and I poke all the wood. I'm looking for insect issues, water issues, but we can't do that in any finished areas. I am required to open up the electrical enclosure, the fuse box. I have to make sure that wiring is okay in there. I'm not allowed to touch a sump pump. Sounds counterintuitive. You know, you'd think you'd want to know if the sump pump works, except that an inspector about 5 years ago played with a sump pump in a commercial building in Boston. The next day it didn't work and it flooded the basement. So they decided we're not allowed to touch them. And I'm actually not even allowed to tell you to touch it. You guys do whatever you want during an inspection. In fact, during the inspection, you're going to ask me, well, can you look at this, can you look at that? And I'll tell you exactly what I can or cannot do. In fact, in our report, we give you a copy of the state rules and regulations. And in there, it tells you what I have to look at, what I am not allowed to look at, and what I may look at. You might be surprised to know what I may look at, which means as a licensed home inspector, I don't have to check your stove. I know if my wife was buying a house, she wants to know if the stove works. So we do check. So our company does a lot of the may inspect items. But we can't disturb any suspended ceilings or take outlet covers off or disturb insulation in attics or in basements that are covering something. We can't do that. Okay. Can a home inspector tell me how old an item or component is and how long it will last? Well, after you've been doing it for a while, you get to know certain components have certain visual aspects according to when they were built. I can tell a boiler's age from its size, shape, and color. And then the other thing is the little tag that's on the manufacturing tag that's on this equipment. It's got a serial number. I happen to have a book in my computer on the job site, on the inspection, that'll tell me how to decipher almost everybody's serial number. But if you're just looking at if you're looking for a house and you want to know for your own information, gee, that heating system looks kind of old, you know, and you just want a quick look at the plate on the boiler. If it doesn't have a zip code, it was built before 1970. It's fully depreciated. Just a little quick. Zip codes had to be what came into being in '63, was supposed to be on everything by '67. I always give them a couple extra years because the government's behind it. Okay. So I can tell you basically pretty much how old something is and how long it will last. Technically, I don't have to. It's one of those may items. I think you need to know the expectation. Expectations are different for the same identical component in different towns. You could have a 20-year-old boiler, water heating system, that was put in by the same contractor, identical installation, one in Cambridge and one in Arlington. The one in Cambridge is ready to die. The one in Arlington will last another 20 years. Okay, Cambridge, and I can tell just by looking at your pipes what kind of water system you have. Cambridge has a low pH water system. They have plumbing problems throughout the entire city. So I can tell you expectations like something with plumbing, you may get 20 years in one town and you may get 40 years in another. Experience is really key when it comes to home inspections. Okay, can a home inspector tell me the costs to repair and the defects they find at the inspection? No. No, I can't tell you how much things cost. I can't tell you who to get to fix it. I'm only allowed to identify the existing condition of all the components that day and then give you a direction. So if I happen to open up the electrical box and there's rust or water in the box, I'm going to say, I'm not going to tell you how to fix it. I'm going to tell you, you have to consult an electrician. That's all we're allowed to do, give you a direction. It's funny, I have to write on my report anything that I think would cost at least $500 to fix. So I must have to know some prices, but usually it's pretty obvious. If there's a big hole in your roof, it's going to cost more than $500. Because of the computerized reports we give you, we actually give you a lot of the $50 and $5 items too. It's just you get a list a mile long, no matter where you buy. But no, we can't give you that other information. What questions should I be asking the seller through my broker? Well, that depends upon when you have the inspection, I think. You don't have to ask them anything if you do the inspection after you buy the house. Basically, normally, it's like a telephone call. at the inspection, I'm telling you what's going on with the house, good, bad, or otherwise, although no one ever hears the good stuff. They always hear the bad stuff. At the end of the inspection, the next day you get a report. You sit down with your buyer's broker. You decide what issues are a problem for you, if any. Very often people do use the inspection report as negotiating tools, especially if there's a heating system that doesn't function. You can't live there without heat, so you might want to have them fix that or get it replaced. But your broker will then tell their broker, the seller's broker, what your issues are. Their broker will tell the seller. The seller will say yes, no, or whatever back to their broker. Their broker calls your broker calls you, and that's where the phone ends, the phone call. Generally, it doesn't get back to me unless you need clarification for something. The report's fairly specific with the issues, but if you have to call me about something, I can certainly clarify things for you. No problem there. And that's usually how the process works, most of the time. Okay, should I be more careful purchasing a home for sale by owner, or we call them FSBOs? FSBOs, people that want to sell the house on their own because they don't want to give anybody a commission. Very often they're older people. They've been in the house 60 years. They think the house is one of their kids. They don't want me going there and tearing up one of their kids. Usually they're at the inspection because they're the owners. We politely ask them not to follow us around because sometimes that can be intimidating for you. So, you know the person. It could be a friend of a friend or a coworker or a cousin of an aunt or a sister. And I'm talking to you about the things in the house, and then they're coming back and defending everything I say, and it gets awkward sometimes. So most of the time, just a polite request that they just give us the space. On occasion, there's been people that will not leave. Happens a lot with builders when I do inspections on flip houses, people that buy houses and fix them up, slap a coat of paint, and you try to sell it for another $50,000. They usually follow me around. You usually can tell if someone's following you around. They're not too confident with what they've done. But I've actually been asked by sellers, or by buyers actually, rather, to tell them to get lost. And I have no problem telling anyone to get lost. I work for you, okay? I'm on your team. I don't care about the person selling the house, and I don't care about what they tell me about the house, because I don't believe a word they say. They're trying to sell you the house. If they tell you they've never gotten water, they're lying. Okay? If they've never had a mouse or never had carpenter ants, they're lying. Every house gets these things. Okay? It's all according to how much. And that's where we come into being. If I go into a basement and I see evidence of water stains, I'll tell you whether or not that's normal, because basements are underground. Don't expect them to keep out the water. Or if it's something that's out of the ordinary. If we go into a house and there's 3 sump pumps, don't ask me if they have a water problem. Yeah, I think they do, So we try to keep things in perspective. That's why you don't want to fall in love with the house until after the inspection, because it can be sobering. And as an aside to those FSBOs, there's also purchases of short sales and foreclosures, which can be daunting sometimes. Foreclosures, bank-owned properties, a lot of times the utilities are not functioning, and the banks do not want to put them on. I'll go into a house and, okay, what do you want me to check? Well, is it falling over? No, but the boiler may not be any good. The pipes, we don't know if they're leaking or not. That can be tough. Plus, it's an extended negotiation with the bank. It can take months and months. Short sales, generally someone's still living in the house. They're trying to sell this house. They're underwater, and nothing has been gotten fixed for like 5 years. So you find a lot of issues with those types of houses. Another one is condominiums. Should you inspect a condominium? Townhouse, high-rise buildings. As far as the state's concerned, I don't have to look at any of the common areas as an inspector. But I do. I look at the entire buildings, no matter what it is, as if you're buying the whole thing, because you co-own it. You're going to own part of this condo. And in condo buildings, especially high-rises, the most important components are the ones that are common. Roofing systems, exterior siding issues, masonry, common heating systems. Those cost hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes, okay? The kitchen sink being a little clogged is basically usually what happens inside those condos. The insides are usually in pretty good shape. It's always the outside common items. If you walk into a utility room that's got a common boiler and there's stuff all over the place, not very neatly, not maintained very well, well, that's an indication that maybe they're not maintaining the building at all. And you don't want to get hit with an unknown assessment down the road. So I look at those buildings just like any other, just like a single-family house. And I do that because I think it's important for you to know as much as possible about what you're buying. You want to be informed. Okay, the average fee for a home inspection and how long do they take to complete? Our company charges for a single-family home between $500 and $600. It takes between 2.5 hours to do an inspection. After 2.5 hours, if it takes longer than that, I've lost my audience. There's so much information, it's bouncing off your head. Nothing is being absorbed. You can hire home inspectors that'll do a house in 45 minutes for $300. I don't know what they're looking at, but you can get home inspectors that'll do a house for $1,500 and spend 8 hours. I figure that if I can't figure something out isn't working in 15 minutes, then I got a problem. We give you a checklist report with narrative. It's a computerized report. It's about 30 pages. Everything is on there so I can't forget anything, and I expand on those things that have issues. So that's as far as that is concerned. Will the home inspector tell me if the home is a good deal or whether I should purchase the home or not? Will the home inspector pass or fail the house? No, no, no. I'm not going to tell you if it's a good deal. I have no idea if it's a good deal. I generally don't know the purchase price of the home. Your broker is going to tell you whether or not that's value for your money, for your house, for your money. The same identical house in a different town could be plus or minus $250,000 only because of location. So there's no way I can tell you whether you're getting value for your house. I can only compare components. Should you purchase the house? No. I can't tell you that. I'm not going to tell you that. You can ask me, and everyone does. I'm not going to live there. If you have to ask me because you're not comfortable with it, maybe you shouldn't be buying it either. There's no pass or fail to the home inspection. You guys pass or fail it. I will rate every component, and the rating system is basically working as designed or as originally designed. Marginal, meaning it may need upgrading or some minor repairs, or defective, pretty black and white. And then there's a lot of things that I put in a report that'll say fully depreciated, which sounds kind of bad, but it only means that it's old and there's no expectation. I used to tell people that the best way for me to describe that is my 87-year-old dad. He's fully depreciated, but there's no expectation, but he's still going. Well, same thing like, a 40-year-old heating system. It's still going, it's old, it's not going to be very efficient. So, is environmental testing like radon available to me? Everyone know what radon is? We're here at MIT. Colorless, odorless gas, 7.5 times heavier than air. Half-life of 3.8 days. Accumulates in low areas. Natural byproduct of the breakdown of uranium in the earth. Second leading cause of lung cancer in the United States. Second only to cigarette smoking. Probably why it's second, because if it wasn't for cigarette smoking, it probably wouldn't be known. Nobody would know about it probably. Radon is tested. It's a hot button number right now. It's something that people tend to be worried about if you have finished basements. It's a long-term issue, but it can be an issue, especially if you have a finished basement that's got a play area for young kids. Since it's so much heavier than air, it's going to be low to the ground. The kids are lower to the ground. Hopefully the kids don't smoke. You might want to know if the radon is an issue. Slab constructions, you can have high radon on the first floor of a slab construction. Certain areas are more prone. Arlington Heights has high levels. Andover has high levels. In Cambridge, I think in 15 years, maybe 3 times I've had high levels. So it varies. It also varies according to the time of the year, the barometric air pressure, indoor air pressures, a variety of things. We do carry the kits in our car. It's an extra cost. They're an extra $85. And then as far as anything else environmental, on our report it says this is not an environmental inspection. However, as a courtesy to my clients, and because I am a certified mold assessor, anything that I think may be hazardous for your ability to live in that house, I'm going to point out to you. If I see that normal mildew in the basement, I'll say, yeah, that's normal mildew, no problem. But if I see that black stachybotrys growing through the wall, I'm going to let you know you got an issue. Same thing in attics. You get mold in attics a lot. Fiberglass insulation versus asbestos insulation. Fiberglass insulation, they have the The jury's out on that yet, but if you're breathing in fiberglass fibers, you don't want that. But asbestos is really an issue. Most of the time, it's on heating systems. It's the friable type, the stuff that can become airborne you get really worried about. And I'll point out any product that I think may or may not have and any kind of issue, as well as what you should or shouldn't do, like consult a contractor to evaluate it. To be honest with you, into the 1980s, asbestos was in an awful lot of building products. If you're not familiar with formaldehyde, that new car smell is formaldehyde. So was that new carpet smell. So there's lots of things that you might not think is in your home that are. But ask questions at the inspection, I'll let you know what's going on. How will the home inspection information be reported and conveyed to me? I do the inspection. I have a little netbook computer. I have the inspection generally done by that night. I have to give it to you or send it to you within 24 hours. The computerized inspection reports give you a lot more information than we used to. We used to handwrite them. I would give you the binder at the end of the inspection, and I would go home and have to do nothing. Now I have to make sure I worded things properly, I spelled things properly. It gives me 2 hours of homework a night, and I'm still going to school. I go to RIT. But it's okay because you get more information, and it's better for you. Last question, what are Jackson Home Inspection's office and inspection hours? Monday to Friday, we have the office open. We have 3 girls in the office. They're usually there between 8:30 and 8:30 at night. Then on weekends and at night or holidays, we have 2 girls that will pick up the computerized answering machine about every hour they answer, and they'll get back to you. Inspections are done 7 days a week, and I've actually done them on Easter morning. I work 7 days a week. I have for the last 15 years. And in the summer, if it's an emergency and you really need something done, I'll do one 7 o'clock at night as long as I can see the outside of the house. That's it.
Great. Thank you, Glenn.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time. I hope you guys have enjoyed the seminar thus far. We're going to turn a lot of this over to you guys now to give you a chance to ask some questions to either myself or to either of the panelists, Colin. Also, just so you know, if your question isn't addressed now, we're going to stick around after. So if you'd like to speak to myself or Amanda, Colin, Glenn, any of us, we'll make ourselves, Matt will be here, so your credit union specialist. So whatever questions you might have. I can tell you that we'll give you our promise to you that from a real estate perspective, we'll work hard for you, giving you the negotiating skills that you're looking for, the experience, certainly help you navigate through this process because it's a tricky time to start jumping into the home buying market. I equate it to trying to get on a moving treadmill. So you need the proper guidance and you need some assistance, and we're happy to do that for you. And again, if I leave you with nothing else tonight, it's very important that the next step be with the Federal Credit Union, MIT Federal Credit Union, because it all starts there. That's how you'll know what you can afford to purchase, whether the time is right. I mean, these guys are fantastic. They'll show you ways that you can improve your credit score. You might find blemishes on your credit that you didn't know were there. All of that is going to help you ultimately be successful. As it was mentioned before, it is a very rare occurrence, if not non-existent, for you to get an accepted offer on a property where you don't have a valid pre-approval in hand. So Amanda's going to walk around with the microphone, so if any of you have any questions, anybody in particular? For any of us, please. Just 1 second.
Hi. My first question, I have 2, if you don't mind. My first question is for Glenn, and you're in Cambridge, and yet you mention a single-family home, which dealing with plumbing is kind of a pipe dream here for a lot of us. So I was just wondering about the pricing. You mentioned the pricing for single families. Is it different for different kinds of properties?
Multiple family homes would be priced accordingly because you've got 2 systems, so generally it's maybe another $100 for each family, for 2-family, 3-family. Some of the larger single-family homes, square footage, multiple heating systems. The office has a scale they go by.
Okay, and condos?
Condos, basic bottom line price is going to be about $510.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. And then my other question, you had mentioned that there's an online application for pre-approval, and there's a big questionnaire if it's a condo. What if you're not sure what you're buying yet? How does that work out?
Sure. The process would be the same, and maybe I should let Colin speak to this. The process would be the same with regard to getting pre-approved. The condo questionnaire would come as the next step. But
Yeah, so I mean, that's a good question. We actually get that question quite a bit. So the credit union does have an online pre-approval, and there is a specific point within that process where it is going to ask you to input a purchase price, a down payment amount, property address. Obviously, you are probably not going to know all of those specifics at this time. So you just want to start at a certain point. I mean, if you think there's a price range that you're looking to get into, start there. Start with a down payment amount that you think you're comfortable with. And then the property address, there is a button on the screen there that you can select as unknown, and it just simply populates a to be determined address, and which is really what you want at this point in time, because that way you just use this pre-approval letter and it transfers to every different property that you're looking at. And then, once you do find a property, then we'll update the application with the specific information, and we can always go back and change things too. So if you start out at $300,000 as your purchase price, and then you want to change that, either lower it or raise it, you just give us a call or email us, and we'll update that for you. It takes very little time for us to do that, so we get that information right back out to you.
Any other questions?
My question is on how the bidding process works. So if you're a seller and you see like 4 bids, 401k, 403, 405, 407k, is it like 100% chance that the 407,000 bidder would win?
You said if you were a seller. Did you mean if you were the buyer, or are you asking?
And if you were a seller and you see these 4 bids?
So I could never answer that for you, because the seller is ultimately who determines what's going to happen. I've been involved in a transaction where a substantially lower bid was accepted because of a personal relationship that was made between a seller and that particular buyer. They were home during a home inspection period, kind of met each other in the street, and the wife said, "Oh my goodness, I'd love to have," this was her family home. She said, "Geez, seemed like such a great family. I'd love to have them in our house." So they actually, even against my advice, took the lower offer. So it's such a personal decision, it's impossible for me to answer, but I will tell you, as I mentioned in the slides earlier, most of the time, the highest price wins. But it also very much matters what the terms are. Again, let's say you come in at 405, and I have another one at 410, and you've waived your financing contingency at 405, and the other person's putting 10% down. It's pretty powerful. I mean, we have to go through that whole process on a financing side with a 10% down buyer compared to someone like yourself who's offered a little bit less but has no financing contingency at all. That's a huge hurdle to remove from the equation. So it would be very likely in a scenario like that you might be the accepted bidder. Or they might ask you and say to you, the agent might call your agent and say, "Hey, we love your lack of contingencies. You've fallen behind with regard to price. Are you willing to do any more?" So as the listing agent, you're responsible. Your fiduciary responsibility is to your client whose home you're selling. Buyer's agent, it's completely the opposite, okay? So you always have to remember that. Even though as a real estate professional, I'm at an open house and I'm representing a home, and you come in and we hit it off great, and you say, "Geez, he's a very nice guy, I'd like to have him right up." Just remember, that's okay. It happens all the time. But my responsibility is to the seller, unless we get into a dual agency agreement where you have dual representation, which is a whole nother step, which I'm happy to talk about after if you'd like.
Oh, and another quick question. So if we were the buyer, will we get to see all the bids?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I mean, is it possible? Yes, but it's a very rare occurrence. There is something right now going on called an escalation clause, so we're having some success with that. Some list agents and companies hate them, others like them, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but an escalation clause will basically say something like, if I was representing a buyer, I would say something like, "My buyer is willing to pay $5,000 more than the next highest bid up to such and such an amount that does not have a finance contingency." So say I've got a cash buyer, the property's on for $400, they put an offer at $400, but we put in an escalation clause saying, "Hey, we'll pay $5,000 more than they will as long as, apples to apples, they're paying cash and we're paying cash. So we'll outbid them, but at that point, we'd like to see their offer. So that sort of thing's starting to go on, but typically, to answer your question, a traditional transaction, you would not see who you're bidding against or what they're bidding.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Give us 1 second for her to run around this place. Thanks, guys.
I actually have a couple, but the first one would be how, I know everything has a different timeline, but how many months in advance would you start like seriously going for a property?
Great question. I think you should get going. Start early, even if you're not quite ready. That doesn't mean that you need to call myself or someone on my team or another professional you're working with. Go out there and be seeing these open houses. Go to these communities. Time the amount of time it takes you to get to school or to work. Those are important things. Do some homework on the school system. Help yourself. Treat it as though you would on any other investment, because you're going to see things when you start to see these homes. You're going to realize, wow, I really didn't realize that I need a fireplace. It's something that's very important to me. I never thought of that. I didn't grow up with one, but now that I see them on all these homes, it becomes important, or I need that garage. So you'll start to see things that you might not have thought about before. But realistically, the other side of that is that if you start too early and you're nowhere near ready and you find that house of your dreams, but you haven't seen Colin and Matt and spoke into the credit union, you're not going to have time to react. So it's kind of a two-prong answer. Go out there, experience things, see what's out there, but understand, unless you get all of your stuff in order, the likelihood that you're going to be the successful person if you fall in love is very, very low.
Okay. And secondly, on that same token, do you have any recommended places to go, see what's out there?
In terms of what's in the market?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And would happy to give you some information before you leave. What I can tell you is that I use things like Zillow and Trulia. I'm sure you guys all do. And Realtor.com and all of these sites, and I advertise on them and I do all that, and they can be good tools, but oftentimes you're getting old information. I can't tell you how many times. I have clients, I send them a daily update. That's the easiest thing for you to do. We can set you up in 10 minutes' time. Amanda will sit with you, we'll get your information. We're not going to harass you. That doesn't mean you're obligated to work with us, but you'll get real-time information every day with property that meets your criteria, so that you're getting current things. I can't tell you how often my phone rings and says, oh, we're so interested in that house on Holton Road in Lexington. I say, Holton Road? And I'll say to them, wasn't that 8 months ago? And she'll say, yep. So you're wasting your time going through that. So the best tool, the best source is to have an arrangement with a broker. No obligation. We're happy to do it for you. At least you'll get current information all the time.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
My question is around the waiving financing contingencies. So on the one hand, I've lost out on like really aggressive offers to people that were just paying all cash. But on the other hand, if you can't pay all cash, it seems kind of insanely risky to waive that contingency. So my question is kind of, is there some instrument you can get beyond a pre-approval that helps to mitigate that risk?
Yeah, so, certainly if we did, if you went through an application with us at some point, and, we can get a lot of the preliminary verifications and stuff out of the way. So, for example, kind of a normal process would be, you would apply, get pre-approved, and the pre-approval would be very basic. It would be based on the information that you've told us. So you've told us what your income is, how much money you have in the bank. We've run your credit, and we've made a decision based on what you've told us. We're just taking you at, face on that stuff. So, and in the past, a lot of the times, we wouldn't necessarily verify any of that information from you until you actually found a house and had an offer accepted and so forth. So it is certainly changing in that regard. So you could do a pre-approval, not have a house in mind yet at all, and you can send us your pay stubs and W-2s and bank statements, and we can verify that stuff and get that out of the way so that when it does come time to make the offer on the house, you can feel confident to make the offer, maybe waiving the contingency at that point, knowing that really the only thing left to vet is the property itself, meaning get an appraisal done. for lending purposes.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand here, though, and this is sometimes how our relationship works well. You know, you're obviously in a different position than some of the people in the room. Like you said, you've already been in this. You've already lost out. So you're ready to go. Where the young lady not too far from you mentioned, hey, when should I get started? She's not at that point. But if you are and you're ready and you want to be serious in this market, but do it. You know, have that all done. You're just going to be that much further ahead of the game. I mean, I'm a no finance contingency buyer. I recently just bought an investment property. I did it exactly that way. I didn't pay cash, but I wanted to be successful.
And it's not a lot of paperwork. I mean, it's stuff that you'll have, you know, easy access to. And it would be a way to find out, you know, upfront if there were any issues for whatever reason with underwriting any of the income or assets. You know, we can get that stuff out of the way right up front.
Thanks.
Thanks. My question's more about kind of the financing side, as I still have some student loan debt, but obviously we don't want to wait forever to kind of buy a house. And so I'm wondering if there's a good ratio to say, you know, you should have X percent of your kind of salary to
Sure.
student loan debt to actually get a good house, kind
Yep.
of.
So, I mean, pretty standard across the board. The standard debt ratios would be, really the main ratio is a total, what we would call like a total back-end ratio, meaning your monthly housing expense, so principal and interest on the mortgage, taxes, insurance, you know, condo fee if you're buying a condo. That would be the housing expense. And then the other expenses that are taken into the equation are anything that comes up on your credit report. So that would be things like student loans, auto loan, credit cards that have a minimum monthly payment, all of those types of items. And the total back-end ratio, meaning all of those items compared to your gross monthly income, would be 45%, would be the max DTI, debt to income ratio. So if you took the housing plus everything else on your credit report, as long as that is less than 45% of your gross monthly income, then that would be the ratio to go by.
But is there a goal to, should it be like much, I mean, obviously you want it to be lower,
so
but.
obviously it can vary from person to person. So, I mean, sometimes, you know, I could qualify someone up to 45% on a pre-approval, but they simply don't want to take on that kind of a mortgage payment. You know, I think a comfortable level, at least if you're looking at from just the housing standpoint itself, is probably like, say, 20 to 25% just on the housing ratio. And then maybe, you know, 35% on the total debt ratio. You know, just a lot of it just can vary on, you know, lifestyle and things like that and what you choose to spend money on and, you know, that type of thing. So it's certainly all stuff that we can talk about. If we, you know, if we did a pre-approval at some point, we can go over kind of some of those things that are more specific to each person.
Thanks.
Hi, I'd like to know more about the appraisal. Who does the appraisal? And I mean, I'm actually, to follow on what you were just saying, I'm one of these potential borrowers that I'm pre-approved for way more than what I actually want to borrow because I hate debt.
Yep.
So, you know, I want to buy a place, a nice place they can afford, but at the same time, not to pay more than I should.
Right.
So, and I believe you mentioned that you can make an offer contingent on appraisal. So if you can, like, somebody tells me about how that
Sure.
works, and, you know, can I say, okay, I'm willing to pay what you're asking for, but only if the house actually appraises for X amount. I'm not
Right.
going to pay like 20,000 over or 50,000 over.
Yep.
And I'm not looking in Middlesex County because I think they're just crazy. So I will not be in any kind of bidding war. So
Yeah.
we're talking reasonable investment.
No, that's a good question. So,
Well, I was just going to say, with regard to appraisal, you can put an offer $100,000 over the asking, or 50,000 less than the asking. No matter what, we can always make it subject to a satisfactory appraisal at or above the purchase price, always, from my side.
Yeah,
Colin can tell you a little bit
absolutely.
more about when that takes place.
I mean, the appraisal for us is really just a means of analyzing the collateral that we're putting the loan up against. So, in other words, if you're buying a house for $300,000, we want to make sure that the house is worth that much. And not only for our purposes of lending that money, but for your purposes as well. So, you know, everything could be great on the loan, and, you know, if, let's say, for example, if the appraisal came in $15,000 under the purchase price, you know, if that wasn't satisfactory to you, I mean, you could still choose to purchase the home at the price you negotiated, even though the appraisal came in less. But if you chose not to, as the lender, we can decline your financing based on the value, and that, you know, protects your deposit money that you put up front and that sort of thing. So the appraisal for us is really to collateralize the loan and also make sure that, you know, you're paying, you know, what you want to pay for it.
So my understanding with the buyer's agent is paid out of the selling agent's commission. What protections are there to ensure that the bid of a bidder who's working with a buying agent is presented fairly and, you know, doesn't get shifted to the bottom of the pile, or, you know, oh, look at the nice letter written by that other family that isn't represented? Because I certainly feel like you have a lot to offer, but at what cost if the bid is lost?
So let me make sure I fully understand. If you and I were working together and we put in an offer on a property, you're saying what's to motivate me to present that offer?
No, what is to motivate the listing agent
Yeah.
who, you know, in a hot market would otherwise get their, you know, 7% on $1 million house, versus, you know, which is guaranteed to sell, it seems like,
Right.
versus getting, you know, 3.5% and sharing, you know, the other 3.5% with you. What keeps our offer working together from being buried under a pile or lost on a shuffle or something?
The easiest thing to give yourself that peace of mind is to ask that if your offer is rejected, that the seller indicate that and then sign the document. So we were part of that this morning. Property in Reading, we were the unsuccessful, one of many unsuccessful bidders, well over asking, without getting into too many details because the property's current. That was part of what we asked for. So we asked for a written response rejecting the offer, signed off by the seller, so that we know we at least went by them. If you're dealing with any reputable firm, I can't speak for some of these little places, but a Remax, these Waterfield Sotheby's, the Century 21s, they've made their reputation, they've made their business on their reputation. So their responsibility is to get the seller the most amount of money or the best deal that fits their needs. Is it conceivable to think that they would bury yours because you're working with me and use theirs because they're going to get paid at a higher rate? Theoretically, but it wouldn't last in the business too long. But I think a great way to avoid that is to, multiple ways. One, to ask for that rejection. The other option is, and I love to do this if I'm representing you, I ask to present your offer for us. So I say to the list agent, my client has asked me to present the offer, is that okay? As long as they're okay with it, I'll present your offer to the list agent and his seller. It's a great way for me to articulate our point about your family, about how long you've been looking for a home, how qualified, how we met at this MIT seminar, the power of the lender behind you, that sort of thing. So a couple of different ways you can do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Great.
So I'm a homeowner and a first-time buyer. I inherited a home.
Okay.
And you were talking before about eliminating the sales contingency, but I'm fairly certain I'll need the money from my current house to
Sure.
buy a new house. How do you eliminate the contingency but still account for the value of what you're selling in the whole lending process and the offer process?
Sure. Have you talked to a lender of any kind?
No, I'm
So-
just getting there.
Again, without airing all of your financial situation. If that maybe that home that you inherited does not have a mortgage or has a very, okay, so you've got this huge asset at your disposal. So maybe you talk to the credit union, explain the situation. Oftentimes they will use that collateral to help you purchase, or maybe you can do some sort of equity line based on that. There are a lot of creative ways to do it just based on the fact that you have that equity sitting here. So again, we're shifting equity here. And again, depends on the market. Let's have a conversation about that. Are you looking in Winchester, Lexington, Arlington, Reading? If you are, we'll never succeed with the home sale contingency. If you're not, and we're going somewhere else, it'll have to be pretty far away right now, but it's possible that they would. Also, there's other factors. Has the property that you're interested in been sitting on the market? If it's been sitting on the market, they must be a lot more willing to work with someone like yourself than a house that just came on the market that's going to have 10 bids, you know. The other thing here to think about is, you know, we can do certain things. We can, in this market, depending on where that home is, request a quick, you know, seller requests a quick closing so that you can get those funds, or seller would like an extended closing so we can get you through the offer, the P&S, their financing contingency, and then we can shop without a home sale contingency because you've already cleared those hurdles, you know. So you'll have the comfort to know that they've already got from their institution the ability to commit to lending. So, you know, it doesn't have to be completely closed, but that's definitely the first step. And there's definitely some creative ways. So be happy to talk to you in more detail about that.
Okay, one more question, because well, everybody keeps saying, you know, oh, prices are going up, blah blah blah. Okay, everybody always says they're going up, but the thing is, interest rates cannot go any lower, really, or they'll be negative. So eventually they'll go up, and doesn't property price go down when interest rates go up and people can afford less, to borrow less? So what do you think of that?
Right now, the demand so far exceeds the supply, right? So all I think that's going to do is help that sort of shift and balance. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know. You know, from my perspective, I hope things stay just as they are, you know. But, you know, I think it's just going to help balance things. Right now, we have no inventory and a tremendous buyer demand, you know. I agree with you that interest rates are only going up. I think we'd be in a lot of trouble in terms of our economy if they take a real sharp rise really quickly. So I expect they're going to continue to trickle, and these guys certainly would know better, but I think that will take a long time for you to see what you're talking about, because we still need this whole shift back into supply and demand to equalize, because they're not even close right now, you know. Anybody else? Oops. Thank you guys for all the questions.
So if you're looking to purchase a house and you're looking to add a floor to the house.
Add a floor?
Correct.
Okay.
And how can you have a contractor go to the house with you? Because a lot of contractors that I've contacted say that they're not allowed to look at the house unless it's in your name.
Yeah, I think that's a contractor that doesn't want to waste their time because they're busy right now too.
Yeah.
As long as you get the okay from the current owner through the broker, it's absolutely fine. I think you'll be much better served if you offer to compensate them for their time. It might even be something that these guys might be able to do. I'm not quite sure, you know, if it's...
As far as tell you whether or not it's possible?
Well, the house that I've looked at, the roof failed for a home inspection beforehand and the offer fell through. So that has to be replaced to begin with. And a lot of the places that I've contacted said that you need to have the house in your name in order to get it appraised for a roof or anything like that.
Well, as far as whenever you're buying a house, there's a certain time frame for any inspection. You can have any contractor or any inspector within a certain time frame that they really can't tell you that you can't do it. But if it's outside that time frame, the owners of the house can say no. I don't imagine why they would, because you're trying to buy the house and you want to know what the cost would be for a new roof. What's happened in the past few years with contractors, because of the state licensing home inspector laws, we come up with so many things for so many different types of contractors that they get hundreds of calls and they never get the work. And if In fact, some of them are starting to charge you to go out, maybe $50 or $100, and then they will give it back to you if they get the job. But these guys get so busy that it's just a way, I think, of them telling you that they don't want to deal with it, right? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I would offer, I think Glenn's dead on. I mean, I think that's important. Offer to compensate them for their time, you know? Once you get that understanding from them that they're willing to do it, you know, take the next step and contact the seller and try to make those arrangements. There's no reason that they can't come in.
Thank you.
Is that everyone? Anyone else? No? Well, thank you guys. We appreciate your time tonight. I know we probably maybe went a little bit longer than we had hoped, or right about on time. If you do have more questions, like I said, Colin, Matt, myself, members of the credit union, we're all here to, Glenn, certainly to answer any questions that you might have. So I thank you again, and good luck with your house hunting.